Hey guys, welcome back. Let's take a break with Stephen Shamus.
Welcome back, everybody. Alex, I see you're still in your bunker.
Yes.
You're hiding out.
Yes, for a few more weeks.
You're still in the witness protection program, I see.
Yes.
Can't let anybody find you. All right. So this week, Alex, we're going to do part 2, but I will tell you, we realized we had so much goodness that this is going to be a multi-parter.
Yeah.
So there's probably going to be a third part to this.
Yeah, maybe fourth. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about this for the next 6 weeks. Probably not.
I'm not. Probably not. Probably not that. All right. So we left off with the Frank Miller Daredevil run.
Yep.
And now we're going to pick up 1980, October of 1980, and we're going to pick up with DC Comics Presents number 26. This is the first appearance of the new Teen Titans, which, again, they've done a lot of stuff with. It's a Jim Starlin cover. There are 2 9.9s again, Alex. We talked about this last time. There's a few 9.9s floating around there. God even knows what those are going to sell for.
People were definitely collecting in this era. They knew they saw comics were starting to think Golden Age and Silver Age books were starting to come up in value. People knew to collect them. Correct.
And there's 426 9.8s, and it's about a $700 book. Now, talk about the new Titans. Is it the Titans that we see on TV from the CW? Which iteration are we seeing right now?
Yeah, and funny about this book is not supposed to be about the Titans. This book is a DC Comics Present. I think Green Lantern and Superman are on the cover. It's a backup feature. It's an extra pages in the back. So it's funny because they're on the cover like, oh, check out this cool little Teen Titans thing in the back, but that's what it is. It's a supplement to it. But yes, these are the Teen Titans: the Cyborg, Raven, Robin, and Wonder Girl. I mean, these are the ones that we know. Starfire. These are the ones that are in the TV show, are in Teen Titans Go, are in pretty much any entertainment iteration. These are the Titans.
It's pretty good that you remembered all that, Alex. I'm impressed.
Yeah. I didn't even have to look at my notes.
Alex, you're smarter than you look.
I get that a lot. Thank you.
All right. So now we move on to a book that we've talked about before, so we won't spend too much time on. It's going to be a cartoon. Devil Dinosaur number 1, April of 1978, first appearance of Devil Dinosaur. It's about a $225 book today. Probably should be more. Yeah. It's a Jack Kirby cover. There's one 9.9. There's 297 9.8s. I don't know how that book is not more. It's a classic Kirby cover. It needs to be
bought. If you see them out there 9/8 for $200, buy it now.
The red dinosaur. I mean, you can't.
The monkey riding its back with the bone. Yeah.
I mean, again, how did Kirby know? Again, when he was drawing it, did he know what he was?
Geniuses aren't self-aware, I don't think.
You don't think so?
They just do.
Did he know that we were going to be looking at that cover 40 years later saying that is a masterpiece? Then the next one is a very, very interesting one. First appearance of Madame Xanadu in a book called Doorway to Nightmare number 1.
Yeah.
It's from January/February of 1978. There are only 34 9.8s. It's only about a $550 book, and it's a Michael Kaluta cover. And Michael's work is great, especially in that genre of stuff. Why is that book not more? I mean, the Xanadu character is going to be in a film soon, correct?
Yeah. She'll be in Justice League Dark. She does show up in the Swamp Thing TV show, which was short-lived on DC, but I believe CW picked it up. Not a big character, but a pretty good character in it. And, as a Swamp Thing side character, she does show up in a lot of his stuff. Definitely Justice League Dark. She'll definitely be in the movie. You're right. It should be more. And this book, I think the reason why it is as high now, and it will go higher, is it's just very scarce. This is, it's the first appearance of Swamp Thing isn't in Swamp Thing number 1 or Superman number 1. It's in these horror comics like The Witching Hour and House of Mystery. Nobody really expected these characters to kind of take off as they did. So this is definitely a book that's worth money, but buy it now because as soon as she becomes in the movie, it's going to go much.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So the next book is an interesting one. It's one of the most popular independent series of all time. Wendy and Richard Pini. The first appearance of ElfQuest was Fantasy Quarterly number 1 in spring of 1978. Try to find a copy raw.
Are they like 10? I mean, they just make them in their garage? Yeah.
There are 56 9.8s. It's about $1,000 book. I will tell you, it's one of those series, almost like Ninja Turtles, in the sense that, not like the Ninja Turtles in that sense, but it's like, how did they not blow up? How did ElfQuest not become a TV, a franchise? How did that? And it could still become a franchise today. And you would think that with all the films that were coming out, you know, where you had, you know, Warwick Davis was, you know,
Willow.
the Ewoks, had all these films coming out.
Yeah.
Like, how did ElfQuest not blow up?
I don't know. The only thing I could think of is we love Ninja Turtles as a nation, and they're huge. But if you read the first 10 issues of Ninja Turtle and then watch the first cartoon, they are absolutely nothing alike. And that's because when you sell your property, you give it to somebody else and they can do whatever they want with it. I mean, you do have a lot of say, but you know, I think Richard and Wendy really love these characters. It's their creation. They don't want to see them taken and you know, turned into super adult TV show or a super kiddie cartoon. They want it to hold the same values that the books do. So I feel like they probably have a lot more sense that like they're doing okay monetarily. They don't need to cash it in, but you know, it is definitely a property waiting to be picked up.
Right. And then the next character is an interesting one because the character was popular when I was younger. You know, there were a few characters that were really, really popular, Alex, when I was younger, whether it was watching Super Friends, Jan and Zaina, whether it was watching, you know, certain things like Iceman. I remember Iceman from Marvel was on all the Marvel cartoons. And you're like, how come Iceman never became a big character, right? Like, I remember those characters when I was a kid, and I was like, and I loved those cartoons. And I was like, Iceman should be like a huge character, right? And to me, the next one that we're going to talk about, Firestorm, is one of those characters. Firestorm Nuclear Man #1 in March of '78, first appearance of Firestorm. There's only 64 9.8s. It's only a $750 book. It's an Al Milgrom cover. He's worked on a lot of these books in the Bronze Age. Very, very popular artist. Why did Firestorm never take off? Like, why is he not part of whatever revolution of the film and TV franchises going on?
I don't know. I mean, he was in Arrow. He was Robbie Amell's character, but I mean, it was like first season, a little bit of second season, and then gone. You know, it's weird because it's such a neat character. You know, the one you see in Arrow is not the one you see in Heroes of Tomorrow, the subsequent TV show, where it's another Firestorm, the Jason Roush one. But I mean, this was DC's answer to Spider-Man, the young kid superhero trying to deal with life and you know, being a superhero. Plus, he forms with a scientist to make this hero who's talking to him at, you know, trying to make things out of thin air. You know, trying to, you know, atoms and stuff like that. It's a wacky like way to think of a superhero, but it was a really fun book. I don't know why it's not bigger. I mean, there's definitely you know, the guy's head's on fire. Maybe that was hard to do in the 90s and 80s unless it was a cartoon, but now we have the technology.
Right. I hear what you're saying. So the next book is an interesting one because it was a hit right out of the box, right out of the gate, based on the Hasbro toy line, G.I. Joe #1, June of '82, written by our friend Larry Hama, the legend. It's about a $550 book in 9/8. There's actually 3 9/9s. There are 598 9/8s. That book was collected as soon as it came out. That book was collected and held and preserved right away. G.I. Joe was a huge toy line. Did you collect those toys when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, no? Yeah.
I mean, I think that was sort of a staple in every kid's toy collection with a G.I. Joe.
Yeah. Whether they're the 12 inches or the little 3 3/4. Yeah.
I like the little army men because you would set up the armies.
Yeah.
You know, like the little guys. Yeah. Those are the ones. And remember, you know, back then the Star Wars figures were 3 3/4 also. Yeah. So that was sort of the normal, that was considered the normal size back then. You were like, you know, sometimes you would get those big figures and be like, no, that's not the right size.
Yeah.
You know,
too big.
Know. Right. As a kid, you don't know because your Star Wars figures are playing with your G.I. Joe. Like you're not processing.
They're interchangeable. You can put G.I. Joes in Star Wars and G.I. Joe. Yeah, of course.
You wouldn't know anything when you were a kid. So that one was huge right out of the box. The next one is a monster. It's one of the monster of all monsters. It's a Gil Kane cover. This book has been homaged hundreds of times. This one was the big release of the 70s. Summer of 1975, Giant Size X-Men #1 comes out. The first new X-Men. Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Thunderbird, and of course Wolverine, and it's also Wolverine's second appearance. There are 184 9.8s. There are 362 9.6s. We're going to go a little bit further. There are 535 9.4s. 9.8s will set you back about 20 grand, which is why I wanted to go a little bit deeper. 9.6s are a little bit less than half at about $9,000, and 9.4s sell for about $6,500. That was a seminal moment, right?
Oh, yeah.
What caused this new team, and why was this new team so popular right out of the gate? Boom. Like what happened? What was going on during that era? What happened with that where all of a sudden, boom, right out of the era?
Yeah, I mean, X-Men, when it launched, was a very popular title, but then sales started dipping. And then towards the end of the original Silver Age run, before you got Giant Size, they were just reprinting old issues because it just wasn't doing it anymore. And it essentially was canceled. This was the way to bring them back, giving the reins to Chris Claremont and John Byrne and, all these guys, Terry Austin, and all these guys that did all the X-Men books. But this was humongous because it changed the team completely. They killed off the original X-Men. It was just Cyclops and Professor X. The other guys got killed. They're gone. And here's some new guys, and they were, one was a Russian. This is the 70s and 80s. One was a Russian character. I mean, Wolverine did not want to. He had a bad attitude. He didn't want to be there. Nightcrawler was a very nice guy. Becomes a preacher. This is in Storm. It's the X-Men, so it's diversity. I mean, these were hunted people because of who they were. I mean, that was a big thing in the 60s when X-Men 1 came out. I mean, of course they're going to have it. So now you have this big, diverse comic. Plus, it was a great story. And then Sunspot quits, like after this issue. He's just like, I don't want to be here anymore.
I will tell you that Nightcrawler appearance in the Oval Office was one of the great opening scenes.
Oh yeah, totally.
Of any of the superhero films. That was an incredible. I mean, you have to think back of the time and the technology and what was happening. That scene, when you open that movie with that scene, it was like, whoa, like
yeah,
you couldn't believe what was going on.
Yeah,
you almost couldn't believe your eyes. So the next book is interesting because it was in favor, out of favor, back in favor. It sort of had this sort of roller coaster of a ride. Howard the Duck #1, January of '76, film with Leah Thompson. It was sort of a funny, silly kind of a film. There are 79 9.8s. It's only about a $500 book for a character that, quite frankly, even though it hasn't had a lot of stuff happen with the character over a lot of years, you say Howard the Duck and people know who you're talking about. It's one of those characters where it's like it's not an obscure character, but it's still only $500. Is it just because it's silly? It's hokey, Alex? What's the story with that?
I mean, Howard the Duck. Take it what you will. You either love him or you don't care. I'm a big Howard the Duck fan. I love that movie. I mean, that was a Robert Zemeckis. George Lucas had a hand in it. Like this was Back to the Future Star Wars guys movie. It got panned. I loved the movie. I thought it was phenomenal. I love Leah Thompson. But I think it's one of those characters that whether they use it in the movies anymore, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was a side character.
Right, that was funny. It was good.
So, whether they use it or not, or if they turn it into a cartoon, which I think it would be a great, like, kind of adult cartoon, like, maybe past primetime adult animated show. But, I mean, he's just fun. It's just such a fun character.
Right. All right. So before we go to the next book, which is the mother of all books, which is a companion book to the Giant Size X-Men #1, it's going to be your favorite part of the show, Alex.
Love it.
I know your ears poked out, your eyes opened up.
That's it. Yep. I'm excited for the show.
Now you're excited. Okay. Alex, are you ready?
Yes.
I'm like the Tommy Lee of podcasts, by the way.
Do it.
You like that one? Okay.
Yeah. All
right. You ready?
Yeah.
It's Alex's pick of the week. What do you got for us, Alex?
Woo! So we're going to keep talking about promo books. Like I said in the last episode, there's a lot of promo books. And again, they've been making them since the 60s and 70s, the 50s. Since comic books were a thing, there was promo books. One of my favorites that is probably one of the ones that are worth the most is Lucky Fights It Through. It's from 1949. Oh yeah, well this is probably why. It's from 1949. It's a promotional comic. It was given out to educate readers about venereal disease, specifically syphilis. So this is a comic book from the 1950s about syphilis. And it was the first published work by Harvey Kurtzman, who is, publisher of Mad Magazine, EC. Yeah, big artist, huge artist.
How expensive is that book?
Yeah, the highs you're looking about $1,000 to $2,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could pick up a beat up copy for about $190 to $200, but this is a book that's like, wow, this is what promotional comics are all about. Like, this is probably given away at military bases. This is probably given away, college campuses. But who saves this stuff? Nobody. That's why it's worth so much.
Yeah, we've seen that before. All right, so now the next book is the Herb Trimpe cover, which might be next to Spider-Man 1, might be tied for the most homages ever.
Yeah, probably.
It's a companion book to Giant Size X-Men #1.
Yeah,
and it's November of 1974. Really, sort of changed comics forever in ways that are immeasurable, because it led to the franchise, which ultimately became the X-Men franchise, which now Marvel owns from Fox, which is Incredible Hulk #181. It's the first full appearance of Wolverine. He's on the cover. It's an extremely memorable cover. There's actually one 9.9 comic. I can't even imagine what that would sell for.
It's Bill Gates' copy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
126 9.8s. You would have thought there would be more than those. 319 9.6s and 503 9.4s.
Wow.
9.8s will set you back about 50,000. 9.6s are going to be 15 to 20,000, and 9.4s are about 3,400. So there is a big drop off, unlike some of the other issues, because it wasn't a low printed book. It's just very, very hard to get in the high grade, because Hulk was a decently published title in terms of its print run.
Yeah, and those were stamp issues. In the 70s and early 80s, Marvel had the collector stamps and printed in the comic book that you would cut out and you put in like a stamp album, and I have all the stamps. So that's one of the books. I mean, I don't know how many copies that came through Midtown that didn't have the stamp. It was perfectly fine except for the stamp was cut out. So it was an incomplete book.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's heartbreaking. So that book, it sort of was on the Mount Rushmore of comic books, right? Definitely. It's one of those Mount Rushmore type books. And, obviously Hugh Jackman embodied the character. To me, Hugh Jackman is really, he's like Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. He's like Christopher Reeve. He's just one of those actors that so embodied the character that you just can't even think, It's
going to happen. There's going to be someone else sometime.
It's going to happen. Look, it's going to happen. Look, Henry Cavill did an amazing job with Superman. But, when you were a kid and you saw Christopher Reeve play Superman, you couldn't even picture anyone else ever putting on that uniform again. Yeah. So it's crazy. So that book is the monster, the mother of all books. And then, then you have to jump 8 years later, Incredible Hulk #271, May of 1982. First comic book appearance of Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah. First regular series.
Yeah, who up until, Guardians came out and it was really sort of an obscure character.
Definitely.
Bradley Cooper is sort of given life to the character, which is kind of fun and funny. There's one 9.9. There's 368 9.8. So it's not a low pop book, but it's still a $900 book. And obviously they're making Guardians 3, and Rocket is integral to the team. Yeah. And the fact that he's voiced by Bradley Cooper certainly helps a lot. And definitely provides some comic relief in the interactions between Star-Lord and Thor. Yeah. Right? It gives you a lot of comic relief between that interaction as well.
The best written character, I think, in the Marvel universe is Rocket Raccoon. He gets all the best lines.
Well, I do like how he sort of played, the referee or whatever you want to call it between Star-Lord and Thor. The way they created that triangle, that relationship between the three of them was, it looks seamless in the movies, but that's very hard to pull that off. Rocket's on the team. He's on Star-Lord's team. Thor comes along. He gives him all these big compliments. He gives him all the huge compliments. Ultimately, winds up leaving with him, right? But it is an interesting dynamic when you actually – Marvel does a great job of sort of exploring these dynamics, whether it's, in Black Panther, where you have brother against brother, Cain versus Abel, right? Which is the oldest theme in the book. They have a very interesting way of using these themes in these films, but they used Thor, Rocket, and Star-Lord to sort of do that theme, right? So that was an interesting one. So, and obviously that character is going to continue to grow. The next one's an interesting one. It's always been a very, very popular book, Alex. Iron Fist number 14. It's the first Sabretooth. Sabretooth has had many iterations. Liev Schreiber, who's great. You know, by the way, Liev Schreiber, interesting note. I watched the NFL show, the NFL Weekly show on Showtime. You know, he narrates that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Really good. You know, the guy who used to do it from NFL Films, you know, that had that deep voice, that film, he passed away years ago. But now they have Liev Schreiber do it. And, you know, he obviously played Sabretooth in the Wolverine films, in the Wolverine film with Hugh Jackman. So I like Liev. By the way, if they ever do Sabretooth again, I think Liev would be a great Sabretooth.
Yep.
Look, they brought Ryan Reynolds back for Deadpool. Why not bring Liev back?
Yep.
I mean,
and maybe for Green Lantern, supposedly in the HBO Max Justice League.
That'd be crazy. That's crazy. So that book, there's 176 9.8s, and that's about a $2,500 book in 9.8. Sort of a low pop book. But the Sabretooth character has always been sort of the foe for Wolverine, right? That's sort of been
and a character who shows up in another book, like Wolverine was an Incredible Hulk, and then has nothing to do with that book in the later years. He's an X-Men. He's dealing with the X-Men. He might have crossed again, but I mean, has nothing to do with Incredible Hulk. Sabretooth has nothing to do with Iron Fist. That's a Wolverine and X-Men villain, and stays in those series. So, and Iron Fist, I believe, doesn't last much longer after that, the series. So, you know, towards the end of a run, they're not printing that much. The sales are already slowing down.
Right.
Hard to find.
Yeah, and the next book is an interesting one, played by Terrence Howard in the first film, obviously immortalized by Don Cheadle in the second and third films, and the Avengers films, is the first full James Rhodes as Iron Man. Mm-hmm. You know, Iron Man number 170, it's May of 1983. There's one 9.9, there's 114 9.8. It's about a $225 book. You know, Cheadle is War Machine. I mean, he's James Rhodes. That's who he is. He's Don Cheadle, man. He's the coolest guy when he's in a room, he's the coolest guy in the room. We had him at our Seattle show. I don't doubt that. We had him at our Seattle show, and there were a lot of cool people in the room. When Don Cheadle's in the room, he's the coolest guy in the room. Yeah. That's it. There's no. I mean, he's so relaxed. He's so down to earth. What a sweet guy. He was awesome. He was great with the fans. The fans loved meeting him. And that character has become a main character. I mean, War Machine is a main character. I mean, that War Machine was very important in those Avengers films.
Yep. And that cover's great. The mystery of the man putting on the helmet and you don't know who it is.
Yeah. Great cover. Yeah, that's great. So the next book was immortalized first by Sylvester Stallone. And by the way, I loved the Sylvester Stallone version of this film. Judge Dredd number 1, November of 1983. It's the first U.S. appearance. Obviously, it was a British character. First U.S. appearance of Judge Dredd. It's only about a $200 book. There's 131 9.8s. The Carl Urban movie did not perform as well. I will tell you my issue with the film, and it was not Carl Urban. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the setting of the film. Mm-hmm. It felt very claustrophobic to me.
Yeah.
I felt claustrophobic watching the film. I wanted them to sort of break out and do something. Yeah. And it was very sort of enclosed, the whole film. I thought Carl Urban was great as Judge Dredd. I didn't have any problem with Carl or his acting. I think the film had issues. Yeah. Hopefully they give Judge Dredd another shot because it is a great character. And I think Stallone did an amazing job back in the day on that character. But $200 for the first American appearance sounds pretty cheap, Alex.
It's a nice looking book. The cover's good. It's a big close up of his face. Like it's right? Great. Yeah. And again, that character's not going anywhere. That's a British character that is just as loved over in the UK as Spider-Man. Like he's not going anywhere.
Right. And then the last book that we're going to close with today, again, this last character almost reminds me of Booster Gold, in that they've talked about it, they think it's going to happen, there's going to be blah 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 blah. Long Shot number 1. Yeah. In September of 1985, first appearance of Long Shot. It's only about a $200 book. There's 359 9.8. It's a great Arthur Adams cover.
Yeah, it's one of his first major works.
Yes. It's the first major works. Why has Long Shot? Again, I could ask you the same question about Booster Gold. Like, you know, I'm going to tell you, Alex, that people have been holding on to those Long Shots for 35 years. Like that was a book when it came out. People were like, oh, I'm holding on to this. I'm putting it in a bag of sleep. Like I remember when those books early on were coming out. Like those were books that people were buying back in 1985. Yeah. You know, so why has that character sort of not broken out, or what's the history of the character? What's going on with that character?
I mean, more people might know Mojo the big giant Jabba the Hutt looking creature with metal legs. That's where that's where that character comes from. Mojo Longshot, same kind of universe. He was a reality TV star. You know, he's just extremely lucky. He plays a lot in the kind of the later run of the Chris Claremont X-Men stuff. So the late 200s. You know, he's just a fan favorite. People like him. I like him. He does show up in the cartoon.
They're going to do something with him at some point. Right?
I don't see why not. I mean, there's no reason not to. He has weird looking fingers. He's really lucky. That's pretty much it. There's an easy way to write him in and have him in a movie. But again, he's just a big fan favorite. And again, that book was big because, like I said, Arthur Adams' first major work, and Nocenti's first major work, who went to do a long run of Daredevil, which is amazing. You know, this was a book that had a lot of keynotes, and it's a #1 of a miniseries. That's also the first appearance of a character who ends up being in the X-Men for a very long time.
All right, Alex, it's the end of another fun episode, and now we know we're going to have at least a part 3 on this. My goodness gracious.
At minimum.
I love this memory lane stuff. So thank you again for joining us. If you feel like we missed anything, we're through the letter L at this point. If you feel like we missed anything, leave some comments, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you out there. Definitely. And we will see you next week, Alex.
Same bat time?
Same bat channel. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.